is an ordinary morning for the American and French pilots on the Borgo base. A plane, a P-38 Lightning, takes off to head for the occupied territories on a reconnaissance mission. It's a routine flight to photograph the weak points in the German defenses. The Allies are preparing for the landing in Provence, which is due to take place in 2 weeks' time. For several weeks, the flight plan has always been the same. Heading Annecy area, avoiding German fighters. However, on the return flight, the solitary plane disappears from the radar screens. France has just lost its most famous aviator and novelist, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Over more than 55 years, there have been innumerable attempts to find Saint-Ex's plane. Several witnesses of the crash have told their stories. Accident, suicide, or a simple attack. Rumors around the writer's death abound. But no trace of the wreckage of the plane. Until one day in September 1998, off the coast of Marseille, Jean-Claude Bianco, a fisherman from the Sawmill Creek, makes the discovery of his life.
First I saw it was engraved Antoine, and I turned to my mate who'd given me the bracelet and I said, "Look, the poor bastard who's copped it has the same name as me. My second name is Antoine. All the Antoines are poor bastards. They lose everything," I told him. And then curiosity pushed me to rub it a bit more to find out Antoine who. And then de Saint-Exupéry appeared. And afterwards, when I really cleaned the chain, I saw it was engraved Consuelo, and underneath Raynal and Hitchcock, and the address 4th Avenue, New York City, USA. That's when I realized it was his. And I turned to Habib, to my mate who'd found the chain while sorting the fish, and I said to him, "Habib, we've trawled up something really special. We found Saint-Exupéry's bracelet."
The very next morning, Jean-Claude Bianco turns up at the house of Henri Germain Deleuze, the boss of Comex, a major underwater exploration company. Deleuze can't believe it. Right in front of his eyes, he has one of the keys to the mystery of Saint-Ex's disappearance. For several weeks, the discovery of the silver bracelet is to remain a secret. There's no way that Henri Germain Deleuze is going to be barred from searching the sea.
Every time the weather was fair, and I was available, and the boat was available, that's about a third of the time, we were off for 12 hours of sonar scanning a day.
On board the Minibex, using the more or less precise directions provided by Jean-Claude Bianco, Henri Deleuze and his crew crisscross the area relentlessly.
Everybody is at his screen. There are 4 or 5 of us in the room you saw. 2 watch the sonar, another watches the sounder, another watches our position, another watches the magnometer, and I watch all the screens in front of me. I have 6 screens in front of my chair, and I watch it all, and I say, "Stop, there, that looks interesting." And I've done 100% of the searches. There hasn't been a day of searching without me.
At the same time, around the Riou archipelago, a certain Luc Van Rel is starting to wonder why the Comex vessel is in the area. This professional diver has already located a certain number of plane wrecks from the Second World War in the Marseille area.
There's a mystery, and then there's a sort of homework relative to history, by which I mean that at a given moment you say, there are some pieces that seem to fit together, so we should check.
News of the discovery of the bracelet goes around the world. Then Luc Van Rel remembers a pile of metal that he discovered several years previously, and which was very much like the type of plane in which Saint-Exupéry flew his last mission. He follows the advice of his friend Philippe Castellano, who specializes in plane crashes at sea. The two of them explore all the wrecks they know of, beginning with that of the virtually intact P-38 Lightning. They are looking for the tiniest clue that might put them on the trail of Saint-Exupéry. But this wreck in the Bay of Lech has nothing to do with the writer's aircraft. However, they still learn a little bit more. Meanwhile, on the surface, a veritable race against the clock has begun. It's to see who will be the first to set hands on Saint-Exupéry's plane. With each dive of his pocket submarine, Deleuze thinks he's solved the mystery of Saint-Exupéry.
We searched for St. X's plane for, 4 years, about 30 days a year, so roughly 4 months. And over those 4 or 5 years of searching, from 1999 to 2003, 4 years, we found 9 wrecks.
9 wrecks, but no trace of a plane. As for Luc Van Rel, he thinks the key to the enigma lies in the remains of a plane that he discovered near the WWII archipelago. But he needs incontrovertible proof.
Certainly a lightning, but is it the right one? And all this has taken me some 20 months to complete the documentation, to know by heart the features of all the models of lightning that were built, so as to be able to identify the wreckage precisely.
He gathers and compares all the information relating to these American reconnaissance planes. He attempts to decipher the constructors' manuals up to the day of this unforgettable dive.
It's the final proof I'm looking for. This part is in the undercarriage housing. This part of the plane is upside down, so I can get access to this part. I know that with my arm outstretched, I check the length. I must be able to feel it when I stick my hand in. What with the gloves, the position, equipment. It's a deep dive and I'm over-equipped. I'm diving with 4 bottles, the photographic equipment. I'm really not very mobile as usual. And I have difficulty feeling it when I put my fingers on it. I don't feel the angles, but the collars that hold it give way, and I'm left with the part in my hand. I still can't see it. And then I pull my hand out of the undercarriage housing, and then I see that it's the right part. And I say to myself, I've done it. This is Antoine de Saint-Exupéry's plane. It can't be any other aircraft. It's the only aircraft lying at the bottom of the Mediterranean where you find this part on it.
So this numbered part in the landing gear means the definitive identification of a reconnaissance plane, that of Saint-X. This essential part will be brought to the surface with the aid of the COMEX. Starting from this unexpected discovery, Luc Van Rel, like so many others, tries to rewrite the scenario of the disappearance of Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Let's look at the facts. The writer takes off from Borgo in Corsica around 9 in the morning for a photographic reconnaissance mission in Savoy. His plane is not armed, he's under threat of imminent attack. 2.5 hours later, his plane disappears off the screens of the American radar. An accident, mechanical failure, suicide. Some even go so far as to accuse him of treason. What really happened at the end of that morning in July 1944?
Saint-Exupéry has everything against him for this type of flying. He's too old. In general, the Americans wouldn't trust this plane to a fighter pilot over 30. He's too big. The cockpit of the Lightning is very cramped. He's not in great physical shape. You mustn't forget that he recovered from some terrible crashes, with a fractured skull, a broken shoulder. But he was a pilot with experience of the airmail service and the first aeroplanes. So he's seen some flying, but he's also seen some crashes.
The day after he disappeared, his companions in arms are in a melancholy mood. Hadn't Antoine de Saint-Exupéry written just a few months earlier that he scoffed at death? There are plenty who still believe in the theory of an act of desperation.
For me, it was his last trip, because let's not forget, you've seen the memoirs of Madame Consuelo, where the last letter is, "Darling, we'll meet in heaven."
You can reread these writings, which were taken as the writings of a depressivist, the writings of a hero defying death. If you reread them in this context, they're also very coherent, and perhaps even more coherent than the writings of a desperate man. So yes, it's certainly defying death, but out of pique, depression, or heroism.
And Luc Van Rel very quickly gets an answer. In a few lines, one Horst Rippert, a German fighter ace, makes the astonishing declaration. Dear Sir, I am writing to confirm that I shot down a Lightning P-38 near Marseille late in the morning of July 31st, 1944. Flight direction, Toulon, then Marseille.
He sees a Lightning below him that's about 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 meters below him, which starts to make a turn out towards the sea. And so Rippert says to himself, if he doesn't run for it, I'm attacking.
Saint-Ex, a fallen hero. Fallen for France. So this is the version on which everyone appears to agree, beginning with the author's family, which has kept a low profile in this affair. It must be said that you don't mess around with the family hero. The heirs to his moral and material estate have made progress since the discovery of the bracelet. The P-38 Lightning's landing gear and some personal effects of Saint-Ex are on display as relics at the Air and Space Museum Le Bourget. After many requests, Olivier Giraud-Daguet, the man in charge of Saint-Exupéry's estate, entrusted the silver bracelet to the museum's director.
The family's position had always been not to search and to remain within the legend. The fact is, we didn't want to know what had happened. Within the myth, really, of the disappearance of Saint-Exupéry, who, like the Little Prince, seemed to have died, but that wasn't absolutely true, and the body had disappeared. We were within this myth. The searches that were undertaken were a most disagreeable experience for us. We shall now consider that in fact it was this German pilot who shot down Saint-Exupéry. Why was he there? Things still remain to be clarified, but there is a high probability that he was shot down under those circumstances.
At the end of this investigation, we are sure of one thing. The writer really does lie in the depths of the Mediterranean. However, the circumstances of his death remain obscure, because they depend on the word of one single man, Horst Rippert. So the mystery of Saint-Exupéry's disappearance has still not been solved. The majority of his friends of the time believe he met the death that he wished for, disappeared, flown away like the aviators Mermez and Guillaume, whose traces have never been found.
Saint-Ex used to say, there's certainly more pleasure in seeking the truth than in knowing it. It's the quest that is the pleasure, not the result.